Welcome to the show where we discuss the first Marvel Netflix series and discern the truth about why this show stands above the rest. The elements of quality storytelling other shows are blind to,
But not
but
this
not this
show.
show. Join us as we start Discerning Daredevil. And tonight, that's right, folks, we are talking season 3, episode 9, Revelations. Oh man, Dragon. Big one coming up here. Dragon, I'm sorry. I don't know where else to fit this in, and I feel like I have a big Mandela effect thing going on with this. All right, you're ready for this? I'm
Yeah.
sure it's just the episodes bleeding together, but I could have sworn that the episode that led into the Karen episode was the actual attack on the church where Latham gets killed. Latham. I'm sorry. But I could have sworn that was the lead into Karen. I don't know. It's weird. I was kind of thrown through a loop, but I guess it makes sense. It's like Karen's on Fisk's radar and everything. Anyways, enough wasting time, enough dilly dallying around, Dragon. Let's get right into it. Let's get right into the plot.
All right. Plot goes like this. So Matt
Mr.
deals with
H.
Anyway.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So Matt deals with the revelation that Maggie is his mother, and let's say he deals with that very reflectively. Nadine, meanwhile, he learns that Fisk had the FBI in his pocket the whole time.
Dun, dun, dun.
Foggy learns that his family has been targeted by Fisk, by the Red Lion Bank and everything. Karen lies low in the church. Let's see. Fisk attempts to lure Daredevil into a trap, but Matt, dead set on killing Fisk, has a trap of his very own until he learns that Fisk has found Karen and Matt's, presented with a choice. That's the episode.
Right. Also, insert obligatory "it's a trap" joke here. All right, moving on. Arcs.
Right, so let's
Whoa there,
start.
Tiger. The photo is already at maximum size. Okay there, Photo Bucket. Photo Bucket's getting sassy with me, Dragon.
Right.
Anyways,
let's start with Matt Murdock.
Matt. All right, so yeah, Matt, kind of thrown through a loop, my friend. Kind of like, oh my god, like everything that I thought about my life, the fact that everyone abandons me, I can't trust anyone, everyone just kind of lies through their teeth, and I'm alone in this world, kind of coming to fruition to Matt, at least in his own head.
Oh yeah, his world is rocked fundamentally, learning that his mother abandoned him for a higher calling. It's not just that she abandoned him, and it basically was there the whole time, and could have been with him and could have told him the truth, but didn't.
So in other words, Maggie abandoned her child! She abandoned her boy!
Right.
There will be blood humor there. Anyways.
Anyway, so let's see. So Matt is a character. Of course, Daredevil is a character. Matt Murdock, especially the lawyer and everything. He's all about the truth. And of course, this is what I'm talking about. Take a big theme of the season that really hit me last episode. I really am kind of seeing more towards the back half of things here. And again, yeah, I'm sure retroactively it'd probably be through the whole season now that I think about it. But again, that's kind of the thing of going through these for a second time. Is again, truth and fiction is a huge because truth and fiction connects the bullseye so much. Truth is a huge part of what Matt's story here is all about. He's seen, he's given the truth and learns that his life has been about is going to be encoded by this fiction, this lie, and it leads to a lot of introspective revelations about the path that his life has taken, which leads to a lot of fundamental questions about his past. And basically, he's questioning his past to determine his future. Because again, this whole season is about Matt questioning his path. Episode 1 of this season is all about does God have a plan? Am I serving a greater cause, or am I just Job just getting whipped? Am I God's whipping boy, Job, more accurately?
Dragon, basically what you're illustrating here is why I love season 3 and why it might be my favorite season is because everything about the season just kind of ties together so well in a thematic sense. And of course we'll break it down with the different arcs, but of course what is one of the things we've been really praising about this season is the episode title tends to do a great job of tying together different characters, and I think this might be one of the best examples of that. Everyone in this episode is going through some sort of revelation.
That is true. So speaking of, you're right, and I do love that about the episode. Again, of all the thematic titles, I think this one may take the cake. I'm not sure. It may do that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so speaking, here's what I love. So again, you have just the revelations on the surface of like basically what we're obviously working with in terms of our plot. You know, Matt finds out Maggie's his mother, and then we'll get to the other ones, specifically with Nadim. Nadim's the other major one of the episode. There are other revelations, but that's like those are the major on your face ones. What I love about all the revelations through all these stories is that there's a deeper revelation that's triggered by the predominant revelation. That basically what Matt's doing in this episode, what's so fascinating about his arc this episode is that the revelation has made him kind of give this harsh reflection on the truth about his life. And of course this brings into the play my favorite aspect of the episode, the Jack Murdock hallucinations.
Oh yeah.
I love how we use Jack Murdock. We use him sparingly, but we use him in a very important light. Because think about
it. You know what? I think it's such a. Never mind. We'll get to it with Dare to Be Different. I'm sorry. That's a Dare to Be Different point. Anyways, go ahead.
We use Jack Murdock very sparingly. Remember, predominantly the very first 2 episodes of the show feature Jack Murdock the most. This episode 2, Cutman, being the most Jack Murdock we ever see. And of course, this episode has a lot in common with Cutman. It does. And they actually reference Cutman in this episode, which we'll get to when we get to some other segments. And that's the thing. I love that what Matt's doing here so brilliantly. I didn't catch this really until the second. It's been a while.
The only thing I don't like about this episode is that I can no longer ship Matt and Claire like I could in Cutman.
Of course, this is what Wilson Fisk were following all the. If Wilson Fisk were following all Matt's love life and just all the relationships of Daredevil, making
all the relationships of the Marvel Netflix series in general, Dragon, he's got a whole spreadsheet about it.
I did like Matt and Claire, but by the same token, this Mr. Cage and Claire, it's also a rather compelling pairing, I would say.
All right, anyways.
Anyway, seriously, the one I'm getting at.
I want to try and make that a running gag while we still have the chance.
Okay, seriously, in all seriousness, so I love that Matt's giving some, again, truth being the operative phrase for being kind of the operative kind of tentpole thing for Matt this episode. He's reflecting on the harsh truth of his situation, going back into his past via Jack Murdock here. He's really questioning, in a harsher light than he ever has before, his father's actions. Where it's like there's this really cutting line that Charlie Cox delivers when he's conversing with his father. And of course, remember, and what just makes it so much better is that, of course, the projections of his psychology they're not him having a conversation with his father like a certain movie that's come out recently. It's him having a conversation with with himself, by proxy of his father. He's viewing his father's actions by kind of bouncing it off of himself here, and that's what's so great. He's coding his father in an unsavory light here, where it basically says, his father was a dirty boxer who liked hitting people, and basically, he liked hitting people. That's what he had the devil in. It's kind of that full circle idea. He liked
hitting people, and yet he wasn't afraid to, to get knocked out for money. It was kind of like an irony there. You know what I mean?
Exactly, and I think the most cutting line of it all is that you let your ego get in the way, and you let your child grow up without a father. Like that, to me, is the most cutting line that he says to his father, basically saying, like, "You tried to teach me a lesson, and teaching me a lesson."
It's like this ultimate kind of like white knight sort of thing that Jack Murdock does, that he kind of falls on his cross for in episode 2 of the series. We really see that kind of come back around and see how that affected Matt, you know what I mean, and how it kind of is a cross to bear for Matt himself.
Exactly, given the choice of stay on your moral high ground if you've done so many dirty things, basically taking dives in the boxing ring, or being there for your son, leaving your son, knowing you're going to die in order to like set an example for your son. He's basically saying that's a stupid choice. And again, that's a really gutsy move for the show to make. Like
Right.
he's just kind of calling Jack Murdock and like, yeah, you could have been there for your son and lived with the mistake, but no, you kind of died to following your sword. Of course, what this is in greater service of the.
You know what I love about that is it kind of calls out just tropes about self-sacrifice in the superhero genre in general.
It kind of does, but what's also great about this too is that also, again, Jack Murdock did that to fuel Matt Murdock, the lawyer. If Jack didn't do that, Matt probably wouldn't become a lawyer.
Sure.
So anyway, it's fun. Anyway, so it's basically, I think the bigger thing that comes from the point is Matt questioning these things. The bigger thing that comes from all this and this really harsh conversation reflecting on his father's actions is, if he wasn't. If my father wasn't here and if he didn't set the example, basically, let me rephrase that. It's like if he did this all for nothing, if he did all of this for nothing, if basically the big thing he's kind of questioning, if he did this all for nothing, why shouldn't I kill Fisk? If the example wasn't set, if I didn't really need to go down this route, if it was all for nothing and like morally the big foundation of my life was for naught. It was just kind of like a zero sum. That it was just kind of the actions of a foolish man, and my whole life has been a lie, and like everything I knew was false. And I've hinged my choices now on that. If all that was false, if all that was a fiction, why shouldn't I kill Fisk? Because that's the logical thing to do. I mean, I should kill Fisk. And I've always stopped myself because deep down it's like not the right thing to do. If I don't know what the right thing to do is anymore, I should just kill Fisk because it's the smart thing to do.
Yeah,
and again,
for sure.
The bigger thing we've been circling around the whole season again is Matt seeing this is God's is it God's punishment, which kind of leads to it. He's seeing this as God's punishment instead of like seeing kind of glass half full, like, hey, you have your mother back, revel in that. Instead, he's seeing it as like everything in my life's a lie. I should kill Fisk, which is leading him to a low point and leading him down a dark path. Because I would argue Matt hits yet another major low point this season, where again it's like his whole worldview is shaken. He's like, okay, well, nothing stopped me from killing Fisk right now, and he's dead set on doing it. He's not like in the parking garage of episode 3, where like, you know what, maybe I shouldn't do this.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not dealing with things heroically anymore. He's going the vigilante route instead of like kind of living up to the heroic ideal that his father set for him, which basically leads him at the end of the episode in terms of the full arc here. Is that again, it's like he's given an opportunity for change here. Like, do you go down this dark path and kill Fisk? But if you do that, Karen's going to die. That's the big crossroads that he's presented with. Stick to your guns and kill Fisk if you really are kind of a soulless vigilante without friends that you've been thinking yourself up to be this season, or are you going to keep doing what you're doing and save Karen because you literally know her life is in imminent danger. I think it's just a beautiful crossroads to end the episode on, by the way, so I love that.
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
Okay, transitioning on. All right, so Fisk. Fisk is basically the way I describe Fisk in this episode is he has just kind of got all his ducks in a row, man. I mean, he is just living on easy street. Like, he is kind of height of his powers, kind of like maximum level Fisk at this point. I mean, it's scary how much control he has. And honestly, Dragon, we were talking about, the criticism of like, oh, Fisk is scarier when you don't know how much control. I mean, really, this episode is just like an odyssey of just how influential Fisk is to the overall grand scheme of things, and I love it.
See, Tiki, this episode pulled a hat trick with Fisk. Now, given it a second watch, I have kind of a fuller appreciation for it. I already kind of loved it already, but now I have like, okay, this is what they did. That's so cool. What they did is Fisk, they basically gave you all the mystique that he had in season 1 without there being any mystique.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they've done here. Because like the whole like if you say his name, like a guy's going to impale his head on a pike, but you get to see, we'll get to some examples later in the episode, you get to see exactly why he is as terrifying as he is, why he has all that control. And again, it's like not spoon-feeding you every little tidbit, but you still have like the word of mouth going around. We've seen what Fisk can do through the character of Nadim, so we understand like, oh God, this is what Fisk can do, and that's all we need. And it's an amazing hat trick they pulled off there, right?
Yeah. We'll get more into that with Nadim himself, but
sure.
For sure, it's definitely a balancing act.
Well, yeah, so this is the major revelation to us, the audience, with Fisk, that Fisk has been the powerful king. He's been the powerful kingpin we all kind of hope to see him be the whole time. In essence, ever since season 2, ever since we saw him at controlling the prison season 2, he's had all of this worked out. If you want to be technical, I mean, from this point to Defenders, maybe, because I mean, Defenders, like, it depends where you call it the year mark, because he's had Nadim pegged for like a year in advance. So that's at least Defenders. I would argue the prison onwards when he kind of had this fact. When we a few episodes back when we kind of saw him in the prison, I think I speculate, and I guess I still stand by this. It's now that we've gotten to this point. I'd stand by the fact that he's probably, when he was working on the appeal process, the FBI was probably helping approve some of the appeals and vice versa. He's probably had he's been targeting people while he was in prison. He's kind of fully, as like, from this point, sorry, let me rephrase it. He had people pegged while he was in the prison. During Defenders, he bought them, and that's how he got out of prison. That's the idea.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so of course, the point is we see just how powerful he is, how strategically he targeted the right people in the prison, including Nadim. He vetted Nadim for at least a year in advance. He's ruined lives. They recapture all of that mystique so wonderfully. He's earned the moniker Kingpin, which is so awesome, and I love it. He's just this unstoppable force, and I love how we visually demonstrate this. He can walk out of the penthouse as he please now that it's all out in the open.
Yeah. Just visually, it's just like, okay, like he's literally going to get someone to, to take off the ankle bracelet and wear it for him. And I love how he insists that it's Nadim who does it.
Yeah, and I love this detail too. I love the fact that think about it, Tiki, he doesn't have to leave at all. He doesn't. But what he does here is that he leaves the penthouse to basically kind of like flaunt it even more so. He leaves the penthouse to reclaim his stake in the criminal underworld, because basically he can bring down any of these people without leaving the penthouse, but he strikes a bargain with them to take 25% of their territory, basically of their earnings, of the territorial earnings, for protection, basically using his arrangement of like busting people, but now the FBI, he has the right people tipped off, he can protect them for 25% of their earnings. That's a really smart business. That's a really smart business play right there. And he's built a cabal.
Oops.
He built an entire cabal in one episode, Tiki, where we had like a whole cabal at the start of Daredevil season 1. He built it all in one.
Exactly.
That's what I'm saying. And also, while
it makes you wonder if he started the first cabal as fast. You know what I mean?
It's an excellent question. That again, like it's entirely possible. I mean, but again, he had really. Bear in mind, I think the original cabal had more powerful players. I think it's why it kind of went as fast here. But the fact of the matter is, again, working what he has of like the major players being taken out. You don't have hand ninjas. You don't have Madame Gao. You don't have the Russians. You just have like kind of all this. Anyway, point being. While he's doing that, I would argue that he did two things at once here. He summoned them all to kind of make a big show with his his Daredevil kind of minion here with Bullseye. He had Bullseye there in the Daredevil suit just to flaunt his power and put a show on it for the fear of God to him show, okay, yeah, I'm going to take 25% of your earnings, and also kind of demonstrate his power by having the one Daredevil kill the other Daredevil. Again, per his trap, if the other Daredevil showed up via, again, manipulating Nadim to get Daredevil there to kill him, just to show, like, guys, there's nothing that's going to stop us here. His little Kingpin's a bit of a showman, but he was going to offer him 20%. If they didn't act up, he wouldn't have hiked it up to 25%. Well, the Kingpin is fair initially. All right, okay.
All right. Okay, so next let's go to Foggy. Short but impactful here. Of course, Foggy in the season is kind of anchored by the deli, of course. His family's, or I'm sorry, not the deli, the butcher shop, right?
Yeah.
That's the correct terminology. I want to make sure I'm getting this right.
Look, in essence, it's a deli, but they call it a butcher shop. It's Nelson Meats. They call it Nelson Meats, so it's kind of a deli butcher shop. It's a little bit of both because there are tables there, so it must be kind of a deli.
So you want to explain the predicament that's going on here, because I think you can probably get to the heart of it more than I can.
Sure. Well, one correction, by the way, all this time I've been saying Red Lion. Apparently, I looked at the subtitles one time. I said, "Oh my God, it's Red Lion." Why didn't I just see it's Lion?
It's Red Lion. Yeah.
Yeah, I felt kind of stupid. I don't know why. Anyway, so, I don't know why I missed that, because every time I guess I kept hearing Lion, and then of course on the rewatch with the subtitles, oh, it's Lion. Okay, so Foggy. Here's what's happening with Foggy. So Foggy. He's taken, of course, last episode he took a stand against. He's taken a public stand against Fisk. He's kind of dragging his name through the mud, saying Blake Tower. He's essentially he let Fisk off the chain. He's not doing anything about it. Fisk is a bad guy. He's up to some bad stuff. We can get him on if we all rally together. You vote for me. I can. I'll make sure that happens and not just let it fall by the wayside. And it paid off. Again, Foggy's sticking to his guns, being the honest guy we all know and love him for being. The rest of the people, the rest of the New Yorkers, the NYPD, they're backing him. They love him. His video's gone viral. People, his election numbers are being boosted in a big way. And then the revelation that Foggy has is that Fisk, essentially, and this is what I call in the rewatch. I thought just how deep it ran. Foggy's family, Fisk has targeted Foggy's family, presumably ever since season 2.
Mm-hmm.
In that he set them up.
He basically really lived up to his promise, essentially.
I'll cut both heads off of that snake. Now Foggy doesn't have anything to do with. Nelson doesn't have anything to do with this. You both took the laurels. You'll both take the blame.
Mm-hmm.
No, seriously, yeah, he does have a grudge against Foggy as well as Matt, and in doing so, it's the idea that his family was facing some supplier issues and some money troubles, and before he would go to Foggy over the legal issues and the money issues, essentially Felix Manning, under the guise of like a financial kind of expert or something, always like a good Samaritan, and Felix Manning came over, talked to Foggy's brother, and hooked him up with what to say to get a loan from Red Lion Bank, which of course is owned by Fisk. And basically that means, Felix Manning has all like the dirty books and everything. He knows all the accounting. Basically, he has all the information he needs to set them up, much like he's done with Nadim. That's the idea. So he has like dirt on him that will send Foggy's brother and his parents to prison. Of course, the parents are the bigger issue. Like, oh my God, you're sending your dear, elderly, parents, especially his father with the arthritis. You're going to send your folks to prison.
Right. Yeah.
Unless Foggy retracts what he said about Fisk and kind of stops his witch hunt.
And so it's just like, Dragon, I really like this in storytelling where characters are just, presented with an impossible choice. Because, I mean, of course, the choice is to, protect the parents, I would hope. But, it is just, it's a shitty thing, man, when you've gained so much leverage with this speech and it just comes from the heart and, to sacrifice your free speech in order to get that across. You know what I mean? It's a rough pill to swallow, to be sure.
And again, it's another example of Fisk being as scary as he was in season 1, but just getting a few glimpses at what he can do and what he's been planning. Again, his revenge being planned. That's the thing that's kind of occurred to me. Oh my God, he's been planning this since he swore revenge on Foggy Nelson for Foggy and Matt for threatening Vanessa.
Yeah, exactly.
It's great, but also not to throw him under the bus too. Theo's in a sympathetic position too, where again, they didn't think it was a situation because it was solved within a day, and it was kind of like a non-starter. And like his brother, who's been completely supportive. Let me rephrase it: the most supportive member of the family for Foggy Foggy becoming a lawyer and everything. Again, basically, in essence, think about this, Steve. Before we move on from Foggy, here is that. If Foggy sticks to the path that Theo and his family have kind of abdicated for him, if he sticks to the path of becoming a lawyer, if he sticks to being the honest lawyer that they all know him to be, his family goes to prison. Mm-hmm. That's Fisk's revenge right there. He's going to, it's an insult to what Foggy chose as his honest path, and Fisk is going to make him suffer because of that. That's a twisted fate that Fisk has laid on Foggy there.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Be the honest lawyer who put me in here, who put me away, who separated me from Vanessa, and I'm going to separate you from the people that you love. Like, yes, man. Oh, my God. All right.
I feel like that's a good place to transition, man.
Yeah, let's talk about the other guy.
So, oh, man, Dragon. You know what? I'm gonna, Dragon, I'm going to do something unprecedented here, all right?
Okay.
I'm going to graduate Nadim's character status here. Forget about the good Madani, Dragon. Nadim is the great Nadani. I mean, how good is this, how good is this arc, my friend? This, honestly, Dragon, you could take all the stuff with Nadim, what he goes through in this episode, and make it into like a 2-hour Michael Mann movie, and it would be compelling as fuck. It really would.
I like the Michael Mann comparison because that's very accurate. Yes,
You
yes.
know what I mean? It's just like it totally reminds me of like another different director, but it totally reminds me of something like Training Day or something like that, where it's like, you know, like your view, your whole expectation for what your life and your career was going to be just kind of flipped entirely on its head, and just each moment gets just progressively worse and worse. It's oh man, I gotta tell you, on a rewatch with this episode, Nadim is shockingly, because he was like probably like everyone's just least anticipated part of this season. Nadim is one of the best parts of this season, man. He really is. It's like I cannot express enough how much of a service they had to this original character. How well he fits into this puzzle.
Yes, minor correction. Michael Mann did not direct Training Day, but if you, I see what
No,
the
no, no,
training.
no. When I cited Training Day, I said it's not directed by Michael Mann, but it's
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you. Okay, I'm sorry. I thought you meant the episode. Yes. Yes, I absolutely see your point, though. That's excellent. So on Nadim, what happens with Nadim is that Nadim he goes to his superiors with the Dex news, and let's just say things do not go well, and he's yes. Um, anyway, but yes, absolutely, I do absolutely see the Training Day comparison is very well founded. Is very on the money. That Nadim is in an impossible position, so he goes to superiors and without getting into the details. Since Dex shot him, things have not gone well for him. Hello. All right. Anyway, sorry. Let me get back on point here. So yes. Anyway, so Nadim again. We continue the path, and what we love about Nadim as a character is that he's a good man. He's a good man. He doesn't bleed into the conventions of like a Madon. You're just like, okay, here's the agency, the authority figure, the agency person that we have to follow because we have to check in with the thing that may or may not be a threat to Daredevil and or Fisk. So we have to check in with him. Of course, Nadim is a very compelling character. And of course, he's in like the ultimate. He's in the open position of like he's in hot water here, where he's a good man forced into a corrupt path to protect his family from both Dex and Fisk. And now Dex is like he's teaching his kid how to play ball, and of course the way Dex plays ball, I'd be calling Child Protective Services. But yes, it's just I just love that he's the twisted thing about that too, by the way, is the fact that he's ingratiated. Dex is hanging around. His family thinks that, oh my god, this is the man who saved my husband's life. Seema saying, oh yes, you saved my husband. Hey, you can have breakfast with us for sure. And of course, without realizing that now Dex is trapped with this killer who shot him, and with the people. He's basically the people who saved him financially in the form of Fisk and physically in the form of Dex. Now he's now being held hostage by, but his family can't know. Oh, anyway, yes. Let's see. So he's in essence, I feel the thing with Nadim to mention in a big way is that Nadim is he's in many senses of the word because of course Jack Murdock makes a major appearance in this episode. I would say that he is kind of the Jack. There's a big Jack Murdock parallel where again you have a good man trying to set a good example here, and of course he's kind of forced into doing something dirty despite the fact he doesn't want to. Of course, it's kind of Jack Murdock's lifestyle, nutshell. So again, I think that's kind of a really great idea when we're going to pair Nadim up with Matt Murdock, especially while he's going through this episode, where he's kind of on the phone with Nadim, knowing that Nadim's been gotten to. Of course, I think a lot of this is going to pay off as we go into future episodes. But that's the thing. Nadim's arc is really great. He kind of loses his deniability in things, and he becomes fully aware of his role in freeing Fisk and making him untouchable. And that's the real coup d'état. That's really not only this. Fisk is as powerful as he is because you didn't see it. He had you pegged from day one. You were none the wiser. It's your heart goes out to Nadim. It's just poor Nadim, truly. Anyway, let's okay. Moving on from Nadine, let's talk about Maggie. Let's talk about Sister Maggie. And going through all the perennial characters here. So we have kind of Ray and Nadine. Now we're talking about Sister Maggie. So Sister Maggie. So we have a really fascinating flashback, which I think we're going to highlight a little bit more later. But let's just say Sister Maggie, as far as her arc goes, of course, we had her just kind of off the races ever since the start of the season, just kind of the caregiver, and kind of our fill-in for Claire Temple, just kind of like the nursemaid to Matt Murdock, who's giving him wisdom. Of course, we the audience know that okay, Maggie's his mother, but he doesn't know this, and now that he knows this, he kind of wonderfully recodes Matt's relationship with her, and just kind of adds an exceptional layer to her. And I love the fact that Maggie and Matt do not share a scene in this episode. I love that they're very much separated, but they're both feeling the revelation. We see that in basically in the history of the show. We learn is that she started from God's path. She started on God's path. So let me rephrase that. She strayed from God's path for love and family. She was on God's path as kind of essentially, they call it, I forget what the actual name is, it's like a novice nun. It's essentially, that's what the role is. Like basically when you're earning right before you take the vows, you're a novice nun. And she went to a boxing match and she became enamored with the lifestyle of the boxer, and basically kind of fell for Jack Murdock. And of course, this led to the conception of a baby. And of course, this is very much in violation of what a nun does. And of course, she's just strayed from the vows and strayed. But again, before she officially took the vows, but she took it in her heart. And basically, she, in giving birth to Matt, basically Matt is kind of coded as a form of sin here. And I think that, hello. Hello. Right. So in essence, Maggie, she's kind of let's try once more, and then we'll sorry, a little technical hiccup, folks. Let's try it once. Anyway, sorry about that, folks. A little technical hiccup we're working through at the moment. Let me continue here. So Maggie, she in essence, Matt is kind of a representation of the sin that she kind of has committed with Jack Murdock here, and it's sorry. Sorry. In essence, Matt is kind of seen as kind of a form of sin. That the consummation of Matt Murdock is just kind of going against God's plan that she had set for herself, and this is kind of like she's kind of blamed herself on this even further with the postpartum depression that came with that birth. She basically, she's this is back at a time where you don't know what the effects of postpartum depression are, and she just feels like it kind of reflects on her like she's a bad mother.
Now,
Hello.
oh my God, it actually worked.
Yes, it worked. Please talk about.
Fail. Holy shit! Wow. Okay, I apologize. I do not know what that was. I decided Dragon. My last resort was to just go down all the options for microphones, and even though I had no idea what some of them were, and here we go. Anyways, okay, wait. Are we on Maggie's arc? I think. I think I'm on. Okay.
Yeah, we're on Maggie's arc. Why don't you lead us through Maggie, and I'll chime in because I was just kind of getting some nonsense.
Well, hold on, Dragon. First and foremost, since I restarted my computer, I need to get all the images up. So why don't we? I tell you what. Why don't you finish up Maggie's arc, and then I'll lead us off with the dynamics when we get to that.
Sorry if I was a little distracted during the Maggie stuff, folks. But let me just recode it, trying to make sense of it.
Yeah, kind of backtrack. Why don't you start in, and then I can and then I'll chime in once I get the screen share stuff set up.
All right, so in essence, what I'm saying here, folks, ignore all the stuff I was saying earlier. What I'm saying about Maggie is that she strayed from God's path for love and family, and of course, the postpartum depression struck, and she kind of saw that as like, oh God, I've committed a sin against the vows that I meant to take, and this is interpreted as a punishment. You kind of see like son, like mother, like son to an extent here. And her reaction to this is like this sin and everything. She kind of devotes herself to redevotes herself to sisterhood. She continues kind of taking her laurels, and she becomes a nun. And in essence, she kind of views this as like this as a cowardly choice that she's made, and of course, in the sense, Matt, she gets her son back, she gets Matt back, and she views this as, okay, maybe this is the Lord's plan in action. He's given me a second chance, but now she feels even worse with this revelation that's taken place. That now
because
I've let him
basically
down.
throughout the season, what we learn is that she's kind of just been dancing around it the whole time. You know what I mean? She's kind of just been essentially, kind of like backseat parenting, if you will. It's like she's looking after Matt, but she's not directly letting him in.
Is all the care and interest that she's taken in Matt had like an ulterior motive, and that's not just being kind of the helpful nun. It's the fact that she's been his mother and she's trying to seek this second chance.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the basis she feels at the end by this episode, she feels that she's lost her son all over again, and of course I love that. One thing I wanted to note with Maggie before I kind of move on from her is that I love that the birth of Matt, birth of Matt Murdock is the union between basically stems from a nun's attraction to a boxer, essentially.
I love this flashback. It's so natural. It makes so much sense. It's again, like kind of like the Italian finger kiss, like mwah. It's like a cherry on top, Dragon.
No, but seriously, think about it. It's kind of the nun's attraction to the fighting spirit. That's what that's what births Daredevil. The birth of Daredevil stems from that. And again, it's like we know, like that's why she's like not the poo in the whole. You're a vigilante who beats people, because that's what she fell in love with his father for, and that's why she's not really kind of like telling him not to do that, not to go out and kind of do his thing. Yeah.
All right, sorry, I'm just getting the root image up. I'm having a little bit of trouble finding that. Anyways,
is there anything major you wanted to get in about Nadim, or are we all good there? Should we just move on to?
Honestly, I feel like I just want to kind of keep praise on the Nadim stuff. I mostly had that Training Day comparison I wanted to make, so I'm pretty good on him. I'll talk about him more when I get into my blinding moment.
All right.
And with arcs and everything as well, or I'm sorry, with dynamics as well.
Well, the one thing I do want you to hear, though, is in case I made the parallel that he's kind of Jack Murdock, and I think that's that he's kind of you think about it, he's a guy in a corrupt position.
Nadim?
Yeah, Nadim's kind of has a parallel to Jack Murdock.
I can kind of see that, yeah, now that you mention it.
Where he's in a corrupt position, but again, he doesn't want to, but he kind of has to. He's forced into it, kind of like Jack Murdock was.
Sure,
All about setting the example for his son, and vice versa, of course.
Right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Now you've sold me with the son thing. Yeah, that's true for sure.
All right.
Okay. Alrighty. Next one up here. Let's get into some daring dynamics. Come on, D.
Come on, D.
No, I love the idea of Kingpin just mockingly calling Daredevil D.
Yeah, he would just go up to him. Come on, D. It's just this trend of like Kingpin saying these sometimes off the wall things, but it did not feel just bringing it acting wise. Where he says like, I'm not Jiggy. He's not this this low.
Right.
He's not kind of this low rent Kingpin by the name of Jiggy. He's like, come on, D. You go. Right. Something like that. Anyways, all serious, let's talk about some dynamics here. A big one that starts off the episode: Matt and Father Lantham.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So first of all, holy shit, Father Latham has just this whole double life where he's like a pole shark gambler dude.
He's a hustler, he's like
he's a hustler, and like everyone associated with him is like shocked that he's a priest. I love that side of him, Dragon. I wish we got more of that with him.
Like Father Lantham is, if they made this show decades ago, he would have been the Paul Newman.
Oh God.
No, but all seriousness though. So like Matt feels betrayed by his most trusted figure. One could say his father figure. Get it because he's a father.
Sure.
No, but in all seriousness, again, like Matt, Paul Lantham is probably the most trusted confidant to Matt Murdock. In all fairness, I mean now Foggy Nelson, but Lantham knew it before Foggy did. So Lantham by de facto is kind of that. So Lantham, I love, of course, Lantham hustles in his off time, which is hysterical. And he's got this really exciting. Where's the Lantham spinoff and all these new Marvel shows they announced?
Right.
But all seriousness, I love that Lantham is kind of a beacon of truth that let him down. Where again, like he would always come to Lantham, and Lantham would exposit the truth and the advice. And again, Matt Murdock, Daredevil, being a character who epitomizes the truth, almost the way Wonder Woman epitomizes truth. You can make the argument the Marvel equivalent of that would be Daredevil, and he
Yeah, and of
just
course we've said time and time again. I think this is maybe one of the best examples of an MCU thing. Is that Lantham is very much Daredevil's Gordon.
yes, I mean even one could go as far as say even Alfred.
He's like the spiritual James Gordon, if you will.
George, I mean, here's the thing. This season, I'd say Nadim is kind of the Jim Gordon.
I mean, yeah, kind of, but I'm just saying in the grand scope of Matt's arc.
I mean, you want to go for like a Telltale Batman thing, you could say that he's definitely an Alfred to him.
All right, yeah, fine. Yeah, maybe a little bit of a mix of
I mean,
Alfred
you're right.
and
Look, you're
Gordon.
right. It's a mix of an Alfred Gordon. I won't. The point being, he is a trusted confidant. And of course, they're a little dodge around. Like, does he know or does he not know from season one? You're right. There is a bit of a Gordon dynamic in there. I'm just saying we have the FBI agent kind of in there, so it's kind of like a literal Gordon this season. But you're right. You are right.
Sure.
Regardless, the trusted.
Just saying,
confidant.
Nadim isn't like a father figure to Matt by any means.
You're right about that. But again, embodies his father to an extent, but not that he really knows this. But
Yeah,
does.
sure, but God.
But in all seriousness, he.
Nadim, I just want you to be proud of your boy. Wait, what? What do you say?
Nothing.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just kind of have this father figure complex going on. You kind of remind me of my dad.
The MCU does.
Okay, that's weird. That's weird.
Okay, but the MCU does have major daddy issues. If you ever wanted to look through with a fine tooth comb, it really does.
It makes you wonder why Spielberg hasn't directed an MCU movie yet.
It does, and it's kind of strange. Spielberg. Well, at least I don't know if that's still the case. He's slated to do a DC movie.
He is, but isn't it tangentially isn't it like out of the DCEU canon? Isn't it supposed to be like its own thing?
Probably, but look, that's a can of worms we don't have time to get into.
Sure.
Back on point. So with Lantham, again, bro, speaking about Lantham here, so Lantham abdicates for Maggie. He says, don't be so harsh on Maggie. And she was in a position. I love the fact that what we learn is that Lantham was there the whole time. He was there when she left Matt, and there like when Matt was a baby. I just love that factor. Like he was there during this huge moment in Matt Murdock's life. I love the wordless exchange between him and Jack Murdock too. By the way,
sure.
He basically offers some really great advice that Matt doesn't take here. He offers some great advice of it's a really great line in the episode on the rewatch. Don't see your parents. You don't see your parents as people, and that's Matt's mistake. He sees them as symbols of what a mother and father are supposed to be, what they've taught him, what they've shaped his life into being. Like her leaving and Jack Murdock, dying heroically. That's what he's modeled his life after. But he doesn't understand they were flawed people, and it's kind of a universal thing,
Yeah.
So, of course, again, Matt, he's lost. Basically, Lantham has lost Matt's trust, and Matt's like, shame on you for you and I've spoken the truth so many times, and you've let me down this fundamentally. And it's a sad scene. It's sad to see Lantham's kind of like Lantham is culpable for sure. He is he knew the whole time. He didn't tell him, but he is sympathetic because I think he made the best.
It's just it's kind of like that ongoing thing in Matt's life where it's like his parental figures just consistently disappoint him.
And Lantham's like the last straw. Like even Lantham, man, you too, Lantham. Like no.
Shoot, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, it's gonna pave the way for some true, just the fact that they're kind of on a falling out right now. Of course, going to pave the way for some pathos down the line.
Of course.
All right. Anything else?
No, let's move on.
All right, let's get to Nadim and Hatley.
Yes.
Is this the first time we've addressed Hatley in one of these segments? Like in like is either a dynamic or her own character?
There is a chance we may have given Hatley a dynamic with Nadim earlier, but it may not be the case. I don't know 100%.
All right. Well, regardless, holy crap, man! I mean, look, let's put a pin in the cold open for this episode because yeah, it's kind of my blinding moment.
I
Spoiler
do have the
alert,
perfect
but
scene to talk about with them, though. Here, we can talk about.
yeah, sure.
So now Nadim and Hatley are on the same page. They're both under Fisk's thumb, and we learn that she had it even worse. And this is where we get like the mystique of like how terrifying the Kingpin can be. This scene, I completely forgot about how terrifying this was. I knew it was going to be. I knew it was like like a warning to Nadim. I forgot like, oh my god, this is like the whole season 1 effect of Kingpin that we've gotten
Mm.
back here. She says she had it worse where it's so chilling the way she tells Nadim this. She says, Nadim, you're going to do this. You know why? Because I used to have 2 kids.
Oh my god, yeah.
And the idea is that Fisk made it look like an accident, that Fisk had her second kid killed.
He made it look like a drive-by.
Yes, made it look like a drive-by or a car accident or something. And then she divorced her husband to protect her husband and get the daughter like not always 24/7 around her house. Like that's why she caused the divorce to secure her daughter and her husband's safety. That's twisted.
Mm. Yeah, but so at the same point though, she's like what I love about this dragon is that she's kind of just been this unassuming, kind of like hard-edged boss that's kind of no nonsense by the books, and not really that flashy of a character at all. And then come this episode, we're just like, oh my god, like she is, she's almost had it worse than anyone, and yet because she's in this position, she's kind of just forced to be Nadim's antagonist, even though she kind of fundamentally is in the exact same position as Nadim and has the same ideology as Nadim. So it's just a very interesting power struggle there.
And we see she's always kind of had a soft spot for Nadim, but what we learn here is that, oh my god, it's not just the soft spot. She's been trying to protect Nadim. Like, think about it. Every time
Mm-hmm.
she's seemingly been against Nadim, like saying
Exactly. Yeah.
like that's the fascinating thing. Like, it kind of recoats the whole story, and that's the thing I've been kind of teeing up in the previous
Again, one of the
episodes.
big reasons I love season 3 so much is that I feel like season 3 is so rewatchable in that regard. It's like there's so many little things that pay off and tie together.
Every time she tried to deter Nadim from the job and saying, like, I don't think trust me, you don't want this, and they're going to look at your financials, they're going to turn you down. That's her saying, of course, they're going to accept you because Fisk had Nadim pegged from day one.
Mm-hmm.
And he needed Nadim. That's why he engineered everything. And he engineered everything down to the health coverage being denied for his sister-in-law, more accurately.
And that's another fascinating thing because, of course, when we first check in with Nadim, we just it's a very down to earth kind of like a family struggling with financial circumstances. There's not really that much there to indicate any sort of like nefarious goings on at all. You know what I mean? It just seems like a hard luck family in in an economy that's filled with hard luck families. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and so I'm sorry, just by this point, it's just like, oh my god, it's so much more than that. There's anyways, go ahead. I'm sorry.
He's like the tour guide. Their dynamic from this point forward is now like she's the tour guide to your worst nightmare.
Pretty much, yeah.
Like there's nothing you can do unless you want your family to die or be traumatized severely. You are going to do what he says. You're going to do whatever Fisk wants, and there's nothing you can do about it. And again, as I was mentioning too earlier, is that the tragedy of Nadim is that what he's finding out in this, he's in the most helpless position a character could ever, under any circumstance, be in. And it's all because, and of course, he was pegged from day one. But the fact of the matter is, imagine if you were Nadim, you're in his shoes, and you find out, like, oh God, he's as powerful as he is now because I had the bright idea to let him out of prison. And now you're his whipping boy.
Yeah, so like I said, it's just kind of like this odyssey dragon. That's the word that keeps coming to me when I try to describe Nadim's whole journey here. This odyssey that that Hatley's just kind of like taking Nadim on. It's kind of like tour of hell, if you will. Like Hatley is Dante, and we're touring her Inferno.
Yep, it's the welcome wagon to hell. Like, hey, here's your gift basket. All the chocolate's going to be melted because it's really hot down here. Let's go on. You want to see your room?
All right, now you're getting very Formiga-esque.
Oh, I wish. Anyway, so let's get to it.
You want to see your room? Just imagine a show where Formiga's just like this super pleasant hostess of hell. It's just this really unpleasant situation, but she just makes it so much better.
I would watch that show. I would watch it several times and demand that we do a recap show on
Oh
it.
my god, of course we'd have to do. Dude, basically, bottom line is I feel like we're pretty much like forced to do a recap on whatever the next Vera Farmiga TV show is, Dragon. Bottom line.
All right.
I feel like
Anyway,
we're at that point. Anyways, go
getting
ahead. I'm
back on point.
sorry.
Let's go to the other dynamic.
Right, so let's get into Karen and Maggie. Not much to say here, but it kind of like I really like how it gets into the sort of like the roots of Catholicism. The church hiding people and the church being a sanctuary. Of course, that was one of the main themes of Victor Hugo's Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Of course.
And I really like the way it plays in here. And of course, we also just see this is where kind of like Karen is almost kind of like the audience's viewpoint for Maggie. Maggie's almost like confessing to Karen in this moment.
That she is, and I love with the parallel between these two characters. It really occurred to me on the rewatch here that Karen, of course, so Karen's going on the run from Fisk. She feels that she's endangered Matt with Fisk, of course, revealing. That's basically why she's there to give Matt the heads up that Fisk knows who you are. I mean, he was on the scent, but now he knows. Be aware of this. But I love, we have the two women in Matt Murdock's life. Of course, Matt Murdock famously in the comics Matt always has troubles with women. He always has he tracks some of those beautiful women. And he always breaks their hearts or something happens, and of course it extends to all the loved ones, and of course with the complicated sister Maggie of it all. So the two women in Matt's life are not. They're very tied to who he is fundamentally. Of course, Karen with the dual identity, and Sister Maggie with kind of what made him become Daredevil in the first place. Because he had no family, which kind of led to Stick. So again, as much as Maggie disagrees with Stick's teachings years later, and again, basically the idea here is that Maggie through this season she got to see the son that she left and what he grew up to become, that he grew up to become Daredevil because of her lack of there. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, again, that's for her to kind of noodle over. Again, like he's kind of torturing the doing the right thing at times, but by the same token, again, it's kind of like the noble pursuit that he's doing. So it's kind of a mixed bag. Mm-hmm. What I'm getting at here is that there's this wonderful parallel of two women who are in this episode. They both kind of reached the low point for the episode. Maggie, in the sense that it's a big revelation that's kind of taken the wind out of her sails, and of course, Karen, as we saw, she reached the major low point. Now she's in grave danger. They have this parallel of two women who are ashamed and traumatized by their past and their past decisions and their past actions. And I thought that was an ingenious idea. They're trying to, and they're in the present, they're trying to make up for it via Matt Murdock.
Sure.
I think it's kind of interesting. And I think again that's kind of maybe a vague Oedipal thing. I don't know, but it's kind of by sheer coincidence, mind you. But it's just the fact that Matt Murdock falls for one and has issues like his mother does.
Mm.
And Karen sympathize. I love Karen's response to Maggie, where Maggie just throws all this on her lap. Says, "I don't really know how to respond to that."
Right.
But I think Karen, even though she's not saying
I can very much relate to that position, honestly. Like, let's say when a coworker has a lot of drama and they kind of unload on you, and you're like, it's not that I'm not sympathetic, because I totally am. But anyways, go ahead.
I love that. Even though Karen doesn't say this, I kind of would gather again from those parallels between the two of them. I think Karen sympathizes. I think she would sympathize with Maggie, what she's going through there.
Oh, absolutely, for sure. Yeah. Right.
Of course, Maggie by the end, she's doing right by her mission and helping Karen find. I'm sorry, as you already said, but I love that again. She's still like Maggie's a character who, again, she can't be the mother to one child, but she has to be the mother to several children. Like that's her punishment from God, and as by her own kind of admission. There's like she's going to be there for the other kids. Like the kid walks up and says, "Sister Maggie, can you tie my shoes?" And that whole thing.
Right. Okay. All right. How did this episode dare to be different, Dragon?
Right. So, of course, we have all the major the theme of revelations, and we see all the major revelations. But again, I think the big thing it's about is the personal kind of shift in status quo and kind of the more the more personal revelations, as we kind of already went through.
To me, I think the big thing that really stands out when it comes to the Dare to Be Different stuff is this episode could have very easily been like half flashback, half continuing the story. And they wisely chose not to do that because the only flashback we see is basically just a snapshot of a moment. You know what I mean? And it's just enough to tell us everything we need to know about why she's attracted to this guy, why she approves of Daredevil and doesn't disapprove. It's just, there's so much there in that one little moment. And then of course we have the Jack Murdock talking to Matt, and that'll morph into one of your favorite moments of the episode, which we will build to. So just generally speaking, all the Jack Murdock stuff in this episode is fantastic.
I love, speaking of Jack Murdock, so I love that we get a full picture in this episode on both sides here. I love that we get a full picture of where Matt inherited his character traits from. Of course, from his father, he got his skill. He got kind of the edge that Daredevil has. The idea that the Murdocks have the devil in them, being the old adage, and basically he gets the the devil in him from his father. He gets the willpower. In fact, he gets knocked down, but he keeps getting back up. The whole basically cut man of it all he gets from his father. And of course, the dream of being a lawyer. Matt Murdock, the lawyer, comes from Jack Murdock. On the flip side of things, you have Maggie, as we learned in this episode. He got his commitment to the mission, the Catholic guilt, and the abandonment issues, and the betrayal issues. You got all that from Maggie.
Yeah, it's just it's a really well-rounded portrait of a character, like the hereditary stuff that that kind of goes into making someone who they are. Really interesting stuff.
Piggyback off of, go on.
Let's see. Shoot, I'm sorry. I had a point, but I lost it. Go ahead. Piggyback away.
To piggyback off of your earlier point, we're very economic with the flashbacks. And, of course, the flashback within itself, to mention, Maggie and seeing how Maggie and Jack met to the separation, all in that scene. Again, I mean, here's the thing. We have kind of a bloated cold opening, but it's a really good stuff, though. You can't really fault it. And it ends at just the right moment.
Yeah, I really don't. Dragon, here's the thing. It's like with me and cold opens. Okay, I'm going to give you a recent example, which I'll talk more about in movie memoirs, but Midsommar actually has a really drawn-out cold open. The cold open to Midsommar, it's about 10 minutes before we cut to the title card in that movie. But Dragon, oh my god, it's a suspenseful as fuck 10 minutes, and it cuts at just the right point, and I love it. And honestly, I feel like this cold open has a similar effect.
Yeah.
So yeah. I really don't have any problem with the cold open being. It's not like Gotham, where I think there's a big difference between this being a drawn out cold open and something like Gotham, where sometimes you just get lazy and it's like, yeah, just fucking throw in a few scenes and then cut to the logo.
Exactly. So, because again, it ends if it ended at the Lantern thing, I mean, it would have been. I'm sure it would have been fine, but would have been right. You have to end at that, kind of the big Nadine moment. That's where you have to. That's where your cold open is, but you still have to kind of the dot of like what happened with Matt. You need to solve that first.
Exactly.
Speaking of which, we kind of raised something again. They're kind of gutsy here. We kind of talked about we addressed postpartum depression then versus now. Where again, then it was seen as you didn't quite understand that it was kind of a natural phenomenon where it was like, oh my god, like what's wrong with you, Maggie? Why are you just leaving the baby there? It's like it's really interesting. As we kind of screwed it, go on.
I'm sorry. Of course, all the Nadim stuff is just fantastic. It feels like its own mini movie. I can't say enough good things about it.
I mentioned this too. I love the whole Dex. He has to the stuff with he has to let Dex in his house, and Dex is teaching his son how to play ball, and we know what happens.
Yes.
And it's just so trippy the fact that again he has to. The two men who saved his life, he has to kind of allow in his life now. We're going like Dex, who saved his life in the literal sense, and Fisk, who saved his life in the monetary sense.
Right.
Speaking of which,
again, it's like the ultimate. He's like paying his oops insurance, Dragon.
Oops. Yeah.
Oops.
Speaking of which, I love the speaking of Kingpin. Again, the scope of Kingpin's power and seeing it play out as as it was hyped up in season 1. I just can't say enough nice things about it because I think those sets, that to me, they accomplish the impossible. And it's something you sometimes would be like, we're doing what we did in the other season, but we don't do it just as cliche. We do is like, okay, we're making you relive it. We can. It's like we put the genie back in the bottle without any scuff marks.
Yeah. And like I said, Dragon, some of that stuff, it's like we'll get into it when we hit episode 13, of course, but I honestly think there's a solid argument to make for this being the best season of Marvel Netflix that we ever got.
This episode, again, this episode is not action heavy. It has like one sequence where there's punching, but that's about it. Where there's punching.
Right.
Okay, folks, here's all the action episode. There's punching and a billy club is thrown. That's all the action. And I get, to be fair, there's a boxing fight at the start. But I mean, it's a flashback. It's a boxing ring, so fighting is kind of like it's not really a surprise. But the fact of the matter is, I love this episode. It has it's all about the tension and the
all the training day stuff. It's like it makes you forget that there's no action involved because it's so edgy your seat.
Exactly, because this episode's all about the tension, the emotional and moral stakes before it's about the action. But the action is there, but it's not all about the action. I love how we end on the big dilemma. I already mentioned that the whole Karen, like Matt has to make the choice, save Karen or don't save Karen. Again, paying off all the Jack Murdock, the devil in me things. Remember, they didn't have to really pay it off. They just said it once as like the cool opening monologue of the whole series. They didn't have to do anything more with that. But no, we really brought it back. Here's like a big payoff for that. It's the here's something really edgy that again most shows will just do casually and they'll never get away with it the way they should. This is a second major shift in status quo 3 episodes later, and it doesn't feel like hackneyed or feel old or feel like, well, we did something big.
Oh, I'm sorry. Remind me what the first one was.
That was episode 6. That's the whole Daredevil and the Bolt and the Daredevil versus Daredevil.
Oh yeah. You're right. It is a big tentpole event for sure.
And we get away with another one of those, and it feels warranted.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the theme of truth versus fiction being continued. And again, I'm really retroactively like, oh man, that's a really good thing. It's kind of, I'm sure if I went back to the other episodes, there'd be truth versus fiction in there for all I know, because it was just really, kind of well honed, and we keep it going. Is the operative theme of things here, especially with Matt being all about truth and Fisk being about the fiction that he's created, and being fundamentally about truth as character himself. I mean, think about this: Nadim is trapped in the fiction that he now is enlightened to being the truth. Like he knows the truth that's going on, but he has to live the fiction that he was blissfully unaware of before.
Yeah.
And Matt knows the truth, and he's tortured by it and its implications. That's what was driving his arc through the episode. Narratively, we're very strong in the episode. The pacing's great. The flashbacks, hallucinations, the parallels, the stuff we already went through there. The retroactive layers that we add to the season are great as well. Let's see. Kingpin bringing Daredevil to the table as a shot. I love it. I just love that Kingpin in his white suit has Daredevil walk in from behind him. It's just an awesome shot that you don't see
in the red suit, no less. Like the white versus the red.
It's such a perverse shot. It's just such a Daredevil working for the Kingdom, like the comic book geek, and you're like, oh man, that's not right, but it's so cool.
Again, I love all the decks and the suit stuff. Of course, we got the incredibly mundane, like evil Daredevil vacuuming shot in the last episode.
Yep. Let's see. We make Lantham very important. Lantham doesn't have a lot of scenes, especially this season, but it has pivotal scenes. Like you give him a couple scenes that are very pivotal, especially given the fact that they're not going to be a lot of them going forward.
Sure.
I guess the last one, as a kind of a bridge for stuff here, we make some smart. The dialogue and the psychological scenes are very smart. I love that. The dialogue's so well written.
Yeah, definitely.
All right.
Okay, let's get into our blinding moment of awesome. So yeah, I already pretty much said how much I love the cold open here. So let's get into why. I'm not going to go over everything that happens in the cold open, but you know what? Let's just start with the moment that Agent Wynn gets just it's like so basically Nadim is kind of laying out like hey, look, we need to rise up against this guy. He's been conducting all this stuff under our own noses, and it's just wrong. It's just like he's like we didn't even realize it, but we were doing his dirty work for him. Nadim is really riling up the troops here. And Agent Wynn, poor Agent Wynn. I just love Agent Wynn must have a story of his own. You know what I mean? He's like, well, you know what? Kingpin, like, just, I'm sorry, can you just set up the context here? Like, is it Kingpin himself involved?
Oh, wait, what do you mean? Is Kingpin himself involved? What?
He's like, he doesn't, like, I thought it was Nadim talking, but it's actually, I'm totally, like, I'm embarrassed now because I thought it was like,
Right, let me set it up here. Okay, so
okay, I'm
Agent
sorry.
He seems like a really nice guy too, by the way, because the minute Dex reveals, the minute that Nadim reveals that he's been shot by Dex, he's like, oh, we're going to get you an ambulance first. Yeah, as long as he cares about Nadim, and basically Nadim's doing the right thing. He's going forward. He's revealing that he went basically that Dex is Daredevil, and he's proved this and coming off the books investigation. They shot him. Point being, it's in Hatley's house, and Hatley, of course, has the cover story that her house is being renovated and being painted or something. So there's like all the plastic and everything surrounding the place. The idea is that she knew this was going to happen. She was on the Nadim being on the scent, and when he called this meeting out of the blue, she knew this, so she set all this up. And we know that Fisk has the cleaning crew, and that's where she got all this from. So the idea is that the minute Nadim, on tape, he reveals all this, Hatley, she asks for his gun and his badge to take him off active duty and everything. And of course, in doing so, she takes his gun. This is the big revelation, the big surprise, in the sense like we had like a big shocking one at the end of last episode with Matt. Now we have like the big shocking one at the start of this one with Nadim here. She just grabs the gun and says, "Agent Nadim, stop! Don't do it!" And bang,
right.
And like he and Wynn are looking at each other, like, what is she doing? And Wynn gets shot twice, once through the neck and once through the head. And then Felix Manning walks in, like basically bags the gun.
And this is okay. I'll take it from here. This is where it really just ramps up, because Felix Manning is essentially like, like the gun. It has your fingerprints on it. You see, we're gonna put it into this evidence bag. All right, and yeah, that voice recording of Hatley yelling at you to not do it. That's on there, just for the record. I like how he's almost being nice about it. You know what I mean? He's almost
remember he's a fixer.
Right. He's almost being as polite as he can. He's just like, all right, so you understand your situation here, right? You got it. You got it. I mean, he's not literally being that facetious, but you know what I mean.
He's a kindly, to the point Englishman. He's just walking the scene. He's just saying, "Do you understand this, right? Do you? I need." He wants him to. I'm sorry. Go on.
Yeah. So essentially, like I said, it's just I love how it's I love how he's so polite in this moment, but at the same time, it's super threatening. It's just like, oh God, like, yeah, like I see. It's like he's just kind of laying out everything. He's kind of like almost like going like methodically, just like step by step through the process of getting everything out, and just
he's done this 100 times. He has
exactly.
That's the thing about Felix Manning. He's like basically he's the fill-in for Wesley. That's the idea. He took Wesley's job, not his position of kind of reverence in the Kingpin's eyes, but he's taken the position of like this is what Wesley would do way back in Daredevil season 1. He's the guy who handles these things. Like I remember, Felix Manning's the guy who protected Vanessa. He moved and relocated Vanessa. That's what Felix Manning said. Felix Manning is a very trusted confidant, though. And he knows what he's doing. Of course, he's like he's the Kingpin's Mike Ehrmantraut. Mike Ehrmantraut, of course, was also a fixer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to look up a clip of the stupid Mr. Robot. Like, I'm going to need verbal confirmation, but I don't want to go through a whole video. So just Mr. Robot, verbal confirmation very much reminds me of that situation.
Anyway. So much for saving. So much for getting that out of your system. All right.
All right.
He's on to my blinding moment. Okay, so my blinding moment, quite soon. I knew this was going to be my blinding moment. Don't get me wrong. The old Kingpin at the table with Daredevil was the second runner.
It's good. It's very good for sure.
It was tempting, but it went with a different scene. They kind of used his fist in a little bit more creative route. The big scene, of course, I love the device of Jack Murdock show because one, again, I love seeing Jack Murdock because we see him so rarely, but he holds such great reverence, and I love all the conversations between him and Matt. But the one that takes the cake, one of the big moments of the season here, is Jack Murdock's conversation with Matt, and basically this is right before Matt goes off to hunt the Kingpin down. He basically hears that the Kingpin set up a trap, and he knows that it's a trap, and Nadim's been gotten to. He knows all the stuff there, so basically Matt's going to set his own trap for the Kingpin before he goes. He has to basically he's going to do something, and I honestly, it's a question if he's. I'm sorry, I'm just thinking about this right now. You know what? It's a question of how much of his mind was made up in this moment. Like until after the moment happens, then he decides to go kill Fisk, or if it's the moment, or if he was going to walk into the trap and just try to take him down from there. I think it's an interesting question. Anyway, so the point being, he has this conversation with Jack Murdock, which then Jack Murdock turns into Fisk. Like they both kind of turn into each other, and then Matt beats Fisk to a pulp and kills him.
God.
So, well, here's what I love about this. So, what I love about this, of course, is this continues the honest reflection, the dialogue, where he hits the cutting truth about his father. As much as he idolized his father and kind of held him up on a pedestal, with this revelation, he just can't do that anymore. And he's just seeing his he's seeing his father's actions in a whole new light. That these actions that drove his path in a positive light have now just been tainted to him, and now just like it was all for nothing. And that's what Fisk begins to voice here. It's basically his father. I love how we do this. We simultaneously have the actor who plays Jack Murdock and D'Onofrio in the scene off screen. They're basically saying the same dialogue before it just shifts from these two voices syncing up into one that turns into Fisk. And it's such a daunting idea, and it continues the really fascinating idea we put in the play a couple episodes ago, where the fascinating notion of this season that we kind of have with this scene is that Fisk has been bringing up Jack Murdock has been on Matt's mind for a few episodes now, and I love that idea. I love how it pays. This is the ultimate payoff of that idea, where he's been bringing up his father. He's been thinking about his father. He's been thinking about, like, what am I going to get out of life? My father, died doing the right thing. Is that all that this path of being a hero, kind of living up to that influence, is going to get me? If I do the smart thing, I end up like Fisk. If I do the right thing, I'm going to die. And what kind of life is that to lead? Just to die for essentially nothing. That idea that we had float around is physicalized in this moment here, where his father turns in the Kingpin, and he speaks to Matt's deepest fears, that your father was no better than Fisk. Your father was no better than a criminal. He was a borderline criminal who was a dirty boxer. He took dives and he took the money. And you think, and you're becoming like your father. You think you enjoy hitting people like he did. The Murdocks had the devil in them. You're just finding an excuse to beat people up, and you think you're better than I am. It's fascinating stuff. And then, of course, he then says, your father died for nothing, and it just boils down to this whole idea: your father died for nothing. Your life was for nothing. Your life amounted to nothing. Your life will still amount to nothing. Something along those lines, and that just makes Matt snap. It's with this ideology that everything you held your father up to believe in. I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. It's the idea that your father, if your father died for nothing, Fisk. Everything you, I'm sorry, folks, it's good stuff here. So I want to screw it up. Is that Matt Murdock is nothing. If Jack Murdock's words meant nothing, the life that he thought he could have, being the lawyer, being Matt Murdock, being everything his father thought he could be, this whole dual identity as a concept was for nothing, and you came back for nothing. Again, it's not God's mission. It was all lie. It was all fiction that you crafted for yourself. You did this. Everything was for nothing. He just snaps at this notion. He begins beating Fisk to a pulp, and then he just kills him. And it was so remarkably easy, too, the way he did it. And that's what's scary about it, too, just how easy it was for him to kill the Kingpin. Again, this is an excellent foreshadow to the big throwdown for episode 13. This is like all the framing and everything, the way he's beating up Fisk, the bloodiness, the white, the whole thing. It's just showing that Matt is at a crossroads here, skewing towards the dark, because everything he held his life up to mean here is just, it's all going out the window.
Mm.
All right. Excellent scene. Love it.
Okay. Yeah. It's a scene where it's like, as soon as I saw it on a rewatch, I was like, well, that's Dragon's Blindy moment. No need to even consider that one, because it involves Fisk. It involves some really heady imagery. It involves a lot of deep thematic context, Dragon, you're a man who knows what he wants, and this is definitely right up your alley. So I didn't even think to take this from you, my friend. This
And
is
it is the
definitely a you thing. Go
It
ahead.
is the ultimate payoff to the flashback device, and I want to say this is, and we'll see going forward. I guess I think this is the last time we see Fisk in the flashbacks, and the idea is he's killed Fisk, therefore he wouldn't appear again.
Oh God, you're right.
One could
oh
argue.
man.
One could argue.
No, you're Dragon. I love that idea. I think you're right on the money with that. Jesus, that's horrifying. I never thought about it like
And
that.
one could read into it even further. He's killed off a part of himself.
For sure.
Until his friends eventually might revive that from him. That's the idea. Again, if he's dead set on this path, again he's killed Fisk, and again there's no unringing that bell, to use the boxing term, I guess.
Right.
Right.
Okay, almost there, folks. Let's transition to our penultimate segment here. Let's get to the Braille Trail.
Which features Jack Murdock.
It does. So speaking of which, kind of paying off some stuff that we set up all the way back in Cutman, basically a whole lot of payoff, not really a ton of setup, Dragon. Honestly, the only setup I can think of is, like, of course, we put our chess pieces in place, like Karen's at the church. Matt's going to go after Fisk until he hears this, and then he has to make the choice. Dex is on the way to the church. It's all kind of coming into focus. And then, of course, Latham, one of the things I was skirting around with Latham is, the fact that Matt and him end on bad terms, it's definitely going to make Latham's death before they get to reconcile that all the more impactful.
Lantern.
So honestly, really, Lantum?
It's like Lantern, Tiki, Lantum. Not that hard.
I could have sworn I've heard you say Latham in this podcast, or I could check the tapes.
Tiki, if I ever said it, if I ever did, it was way back during the early season one where I had to figure out how to say it.
No. I'm saying in this podcast that we're recording right now, I could have sworn at least once you said Latham and not
No,
Lantum.
I've said Lantum this podcast. We can check the tape. I've said Lantum.
Fair enough. Whatever.
Anyway. Point being, yes, the point being, so we're building up Lantum, of course, for before we kind of
downfall.
Yes. Oh, here's a big one. It's actually thematically appropriate to the card we have, even. Fogwells. Sure. I want to talk about Fogwells because this thing kind of hit me on the rewatch. You know what's so great about Fogwells? Because, of course, Matt, he returns the Fogwells, and it's been a while since he has, because he breaks into the place, and just kind of hangs out there, and that's where, all the major scenes are with the flashback. Not the flashbacks, with the, is where he's laying low. Instead, he's moved from the church to Fogwells, and that's where he's having the hallucinations of Kingpin and Jack Murdock. He's getting ready. He's kind of training himself before he goes after Fisk. But of course, Fogwells is where he has basically the image before us. He has the profound moment with his father right before he dies. It's where his father met his mother. We learn his father met his mother at this place. It's where he and Elektra consummated their relationship. Fogwells is a very important place for Matt Murdock. Indicative of where of his father and everything that, again, he's kind of shaped himself into in terms of training himself, as well as just kind of what his father's dreams were, what he aspired his son to be. Another big Cutman thing, the Muay ropes, and this is going to pay off by the end here. So the Muay ropes, this is really cool. So the biggest tie to Cutman is that he hasn't used Muay. Jack Murdock says it's been a long time since you've used the Muay ropes. Of course, these are the ropes he wraps around his hands for the folks out there. Now, this is a call to. He hasn't used those since Cutman. When he goes up against the idea, Tiki, is that when Matt Murdock's playing beyond hurt, he needs an advantage, and it's an old trick. It's an old fighting trick where if you tie ropes around your knuckles, it's like brass knuckles, but it's rope.
Right.
That's the idea. And of course, again, this is going to be, Matt playing hurt this whole season is kind of a great way of visualizing, and again, adding more white to the costume that, again, will get kind of red and bloody when he fights the Kingpin.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm pretty much out of. I'm just kind of waiting for stuff that was paid off in this episode, not necessarily pay up setup stuff.
Or let's see. Here's one. Here's actually is a big cameo in this episode. Rosalie Carbone. So Rosalie Carbone is kind of the most vocal of the kind of the new cabal. The only name player in the new cabal, if I'm being frank, is Rosalie Carbone. She's the lady who asks like the 20 like how much, like where do you want the money dropped off? That lady, the Italian lady. I want to say she's the representative of the Italian mob in Fiska's new operation, or at least on New York side of things. I know she has affiliations with the Russians, but I think she's represents of the Italian. You'll remember her. Well, I know you're not going to remember. It's not the point being. Rosalie Carbone was set up in Luke Cage, season 2. She was the big crime boss who Luke Cage struck a deal with. She was the whole she put the lockbox around.
You're
Harlem.
asking me to remember anything from Luke Cage season 2, Dragon. I'm sorry, it's not going to happen.
And of course, from the comics, Rosalie Carbone, she's a Punisher bad guy, and the idea is they worked in Netflix through Luke Cage, and now kind of through here with Daredevil season 3. So a little fun of that.
All right.
Let's see. Nadim's bullet wound again. That had a payoff here, where again he was shot in the previous episode. Kind of uses as the big proof in the pudding.
Oh! Speaking of which, so the thing that I was actually saying right as I cut off earlier, one of the most painful things, like realistic things in the whole series, honestly, is that shot of Nadim in the shower when he's like trying to wash out his wound, and he's like, you can just see it on his face. He's just like, oh God, the pain isn't going away. This is awful.
And you got to remember, when he gets stressed out, that means anytime you get stressed out with like a knife or a bullet wound, it begins to bleed. So with Dex there at the house, he has to change his shirt. It's just gonna be, oh guys,
Exactly.
Yep. Okay, let's see. Here's a kind of a little. I looked into this. So the revelation. So specifically, learning that Maggie is his mother. I know it went down differently in the comic, but it's a great foreshadowy pull here. That is from Guardian Devils. I mean, let me be clear. So Sister Maggie is in Born Again, but addressing the whole mother angle of it all, that was in Guardian Devil. Guardian Devil being the famous comic story Kevin Smith wrote, where Karen Page got killed off. So the idea is we're bridging a little bit from Born Again to Guardian Devil. It's kind of neat.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Let's see. Okay, huge one. Kingpin's code name. He's officially called the Kingpin by the FBI.
Oh my God! Yeah. That's really cool that they legitimized it like that.
Love it again. Well, think about how cool this is. All right, we don't say his name from season 1. We brought it back. We don't say his name with the FBI. And it's like we don't say his name. It's the King. We call him Kingpin. Like, yes, they gave him an operation code. That's awesome. Oh, it's so good. I think it's the best example of Marvel legitimizing a name. Might be.
Oh, it might be. It very well could be. I'd have to check the tapes on it. I'd have to.
You want to be a war machine?
Okay, fair point.
The results could be an abomination.
Oh God.
We're ironmongers, Tony.
All right, I get it. All right. Any others you want to throw at me while you're at it? I'm sure there's others that are like exactly like that.
Well, look, it's on, but let's.
Oh! I've got one. I'm Luke Cage. All right. Now we're just being silly. Anyway.
Okay, let's see. I think we got through all the major ones here. I mean, obviously the FBI was in Fiska's pocket the whole time. That's a big payoff. Well, it's more. It's a setup payoff. And I think we already covered like Karen's in the church, all that sort of stuff. So it's we're foreshadowing the big climax of the season with that hallucination that Matt had. So we're foreshadowing the big climax. There's something.
Sure.
All right. Yeah. Oh, and Marcy. Oh, one of our running gags paid off. Well, it's not a running gag. One of our early on gags paid off here.
How so?
Completely forgot about this. So Marcy. The idea is way back when we had this gag where we had Marcy, and then when we saw Nelson meets, when we saw Foggy's family. Speculate, Marcy's probably met his family, and it's probably like a cute exchange. Like, what are you gonna give me, grandchildren?
Oh my God, you're right. It is, it's very much so. It's just like, oh, have you considered getting your eggs frozen, Marcy?
At all, just the idea, like Marcy meeting.
You never know.
Marcy meeting the Nelson family. We got to see. It wasn't quite the meeting; it was the follow up of like, oh man, they could. Oh boy, it's still adorable. I guess the bigger plot line, of course, from the comics. I think it's the last time we're going to bring it up, unless I think they do it in the next. Okay, it's not the last time; it's the last major time we have the election stuff. So Foggy and Foggy versus Tower, which is from the comics, and running for DA. And honestly, it follows it pretty suit, but we'll get there when we get there. Anyway, so the election trouble. All right.
Yes. Okay.
All right.
All right. Without further ado, let's get to the Nelson Murdock verdict. Okay, so Dragon, yeah, simply put, I think this episode is really firing on all cylinders. It's interesting because this is I didn't even realize how little action this episode had because, like I said earlier, this kind of had a Mandela effect type thing where I could have sworn the church attack happened at the end of this episode, but obviously not. So really, it just kind of goes to show that this episode really stands on its own, very much so, where other Marvel Netflix shows really do have a problem of just dragging their feet. This one is not dragging its feet at all. There might not be a lot of action, but there's a ton of substance. I mean, again, the fact that the Nadim stuff feels like a mini movie, and also, Dragon, really quick, I want to bring up the that montage with Nadim being forced to arrest all the people. That I love that. Wow, that's just that was a runner-up for my Blondie.
Oh, you know what's really cool about that? Now you bring
What?
it up. Of course, the first season of Daredevil ended with the set to Pavarotti, set to Pavarotti's opera music. You had the FBI arresting all Fisk's associates, and now Fisk is doing it, but by his own accord.
That's so twisted. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, right. Honestly, Dragon, I'm going to make a bold claim here. I think this is probably the best episode of season 3 thus far that we've talked about.
It is.
I really think all the elements come together from the Matt side of things, especially for, again, I can't believe I am heaping this much praise on a government type guy who was invented for the show, but here we are, folks. Nadim is a fantastically written character. I don't know what else to tell you.
Yeah.
All right, so that's it, Dragon. Go ahead.
Look, for me, it's one real quick, just something that occurred to me since you brought this up. Because again, one other, I guess, kind of leftover discerned to be, dared to be different, is the fact that, again, Tiki, I can't tell you how many times you're going to have filler episodes or these kind of stalling episodes with stuff from the CW shows like Arrow, where again, there's always a mandate to either cram action into something, or if we don't have, so rarely will you see an episode get away with kind of having an episode without mandated action in it, because again, all networks, animated, whether it be animated, especially with animated program, they're terrified in animation of dialogue or stakes-driven episodes. There's compelling episodes that don't have anything to do with the whammo blammo action of it all, because they think that's everything's going to hinge on it. The same could be said for some of the live action superhero shows. Let's name, again, I'm throwing some shade at later seasons Arrow, but yeah, it's the same thing. We're afraid of these downtime episodes. We're don't be afraid of them, embrace them if you really put the elbow grease in the writing. I think this episode is a testament to that. This episode it's a great, well plotted episode. It's got great storytelling, with the revelations our characters are dealing with. I love getting into Matt's head and rekindling the we found a way to rekindle the whole do I kill the Kingpin debate without it getting stale. Where we think about that, we do it again, but it doesn't get stale. This is the third time that
hat trick unto itself right there.
This is the third time that we do it, and it's still great. We build up Kingpin via the Nadim story, which is great, by his revelations, and as it all builds up to it all builds to a head. It boils down to Karen, which of course is the perfect foray into what the next episode is.
Hello,
So
Karen.
all about. Exactly, it's gonna be all about Karen. And again, this is just excellent plotting within an episode. And here's the thing: it's kind of a setup episode. It's kind of a plot episode, plot in the best sense of the word. It is, in the best sense of that word, though. And it's, again, not a lot of action, but it's all about the stakes. It's very compelling. It's a well-told story. It's not just about the earth-shattering revelations. It hits the deeper revelations about yourself and what's driven your actions up to this point. And again, it may be the best episode, but that's the thing. This season's an embarrassment of riches so far, as we're watching for the second time as we do this with this show. It's again, every episode is like a contender for best episode, one could say. I mean, they're all just tremendously fantastic.
All right.
I love them. This is a wonderful episode. Can't get enough of it.
Okay, so that's all for now until our next daring installment of Discerning Daredevil. Excelsior!
Enough said.
Come on. Yeah.